حندو عندكم كلهم كمان لهم سمعتي كمان لهم. I think interesting ዝኾነ program ጀሚረ ኣለኹ ኣብቲ ናይ English program እውን ከጋልፅ ክንገልፅና about the lives and times of Susan Rice ካብቲ ናይ ኣሜሪካ policy ድዋዕዋዕ ዘበልኦ personalized ኮይነን ሓንቲ Susan Rice እያ ኩሉ ሓደጋ ዝፈጠረቶ ምስ ወያነ ኮይና እዚ ኩሉ ኣጋጊያቶም እያ ኣሜሪካንስ እምበር ናታ መዓልቲ ምስኣ ክንውዕልና ኣብ ክልተ ሴሽን ክገብሮ ክእል حسب كقولي دلني maybe كسب خدها كيدنا لسه German the one and only Susan Rice.
So there have been some dissenting voices. Dana Milbank, columnist with the Washington Post, came out saying she was not fit for the job because of her personality, which she's seen as arrogant and in some ways out of touch. But for the most part, the perception up till now has been that her now infamous appearance on the Sunday talk shows on September 16th, when she somewhat misleadingly, indicated that the attacks that killed Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans on September 11th were the result of spontaneous protests linked to this anti-Muslim film. That seems to have gotten her in deep water. But I think that story is starting to go away now.
Yeah. Well, and then the problem with that, though, is that
after discuss qualified United States ambassador, UN ambassador in America, the Secretary of State. Now what's our ministry gonna make abanat راح كونت الصيغة. أبز بامجازي زبها experience مع عين صوتي بعد عين تسيكي هرايدوني بوز بس كم سوي anyway لحد كورم نخيد بحتيرو لم تأخذ بسمت عن هذا اللي حصلكم نيتنا picture سب كم يجيروا لي أما جبر أنا
there really is no debate over the kind of thing that you wrote about in your piece here, which is the actual substance of the policies that she advocates. She doesn't advocate them lightly at all. She's a very determined interventionist in a great many ways.
personality ادم arrogant سويكا انا ازفلت بهال ነገር ኣብ ዝኾነ ነገር ኣዝያክት ኣቱ ትደሊ.
Well, that's right. And what I tried to trace there in that article was the history of naivete going back to the 1990s in her dealings with various African dictators in the aftermath of what even Bill Clinton said was the single biggest mistake of his presidency. And of course,
Bill Clinton, come on, ناتنا حسر حماق نقر تقبرنا اسمس ديكتاتورات تيم اب مكبرنا إلو استزارب الأستاذ ديكتاتورز أزياد فتي أزياد مسأتهم هذا عينة اتاتشمنت الله رايلوني لهان اندا ترى انا نزارب زربات راحي anyway نجزيو زربات راحي اوكي اندا ترى انا نزارب
considering, the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which he said was his failure to intervene as the Rwandan genocide was going on in 1994, and Susan Rice was very much part of that. She was the director on his National Security Council in charge of Africa, and she herself said that she always felt terrible about that. But what's interesting and what has not
ولا في رواندا جينيسايد كمان بعد كليتن كله بعلات واسايت ميرا رايلوني نمنتي كتفنا اتينا زير محلنا يوم نتو سبات سبان نقر يتعسوي كلينتون ساون يتعسني اتبلا سبع لا افتح ما نقر
come to light very much is what she did afterwards when she became Assistant Secretary of State for Africa in Clinton's second term, and she dealt
بدحلو Secretary of State نا أفريقيا جرم قصيروما تبالاشي نقر complete
with many of these same dictators and kind of looked the other way when people like Paul
بار تايزلو مسوم ديكتاتورز قرب جميرا Secretary of State مسكبروا مرتهم ديكتاتور أفريقيا dictators بالهم سأتهم special connection كيرا كي جميرا إزبلو
Paul Kagame, the leader of Rwanda, began intervening in Congo, and sort of a counter-genocide began there.
Well, now,
Kagame مسأته completely كبلا يخلني so you look how I feel so I'm Congo but it's never of genocide right نوعها ما تقاوم ما توعسى مالتي أنا 5 رداني تخوي راسي جينوسايد تقبر زول كيروم يقرون يروم ساميكس
in Congo, that was what year did Mobutu fall out of power, or did he die, or was he overthrown? I forget.
Well, that was right about
more interesting نقرات كمتي لك تسمو
then in the late mid to late 1990s, and what happened was in the post Mobutu era, Paul Kagame and a few other leaders, Museveni in Uganda, were kind of set up as this new generation of African leaders, again, somewhat naively by the Clinton administration, with Susan Rice at the fore of this policy. And there was a sense that we could simply leave Africa to these, new generation of leaders, when in fact what was happening was that they were in many ways just following the practices of their predecessors while putting on a benign face, for the West. Kagame was a great example of someone who posed as a kind of peacemaker, even while he was intervening heavily in eastern Congo, and where a lot of atrocities were occurring. And this is an issue that goes right up until the present day, because a UN report has just come out linking Rwanda, the Rwandan government under Kagame, to a very brutal group called the M23 group of rebels that has been committing atrocities in the Congo. And Susan Rice at the UN has not been a very forthright opponent of these Rwandan policies.
Mm-hmm. Well,
رواندا وانتقافي في جنوسايد كاغامي زمزلو من الواتكم متردين إني رخون مجمرة زي قدس جن أبزخونا نقر productive نقر أي صراحة مستوهم dictators مستوهم عمتي أو توكنيرا إزبلكم زلومو كناتينا نفس subject ما.
See, that's the real trick, right? Is she says, or even the policy, or the way you put it, kind of leave it to the new generation of leaders. They're not just leaving it, though. If there's a new generation of leaders, they're picking and choosing and backing. The ones that they'll tolerate are the ones that they subsidize, and they make America complicit. So it's not just a war in Congo. It's somewhat America's war in Congo.
New generation of leaders that have had a Meles Zenawi العنزة بتاعته حدش مراي حدش أفريقيا خمسكب بقى تأماتاي وزوجنا قرص كب جن تقرأي أبي بتحواكم زولنا تبالشي لنا لنا.
Yeah, and this is, look, the conflict in the Congo, which has been going on for most of this decade, and almost no one pays any attention to. I mean, it is known as the forgotten war. is really a terrible, terrible conflict. More than 5 million people have died. It's sometimes called Africa's World War because there are so many parties involved. And
5 ሚሊዮን ሰብ ዝሞተሉ ነገር የተነገርት ናይ ኮንጎ ገለመ ኢዳ እትያብኡ ምስኦም ክትመራሳ ምስቶም ኣዘዝታ ማለት ከምዚ ዓይነት ፓወር ክትረክብ ባላ ጸላም ሰበይቲ ኮርስ መጨረሻ ጨካ ተኣዛዝ ትኮናሉ ይርዝከረኩም ኦባማ ከማን ዝገበርዎ ፕሬዚደንት ኮይኑ ኣብ ሊብያ ከምዚ ዓይነት ክራይሲስ ዘብፅእ ኦባማ ንካዳፊ ከም ዝቐትል ገይሮም ከመይ ገይሮም ፃዓዱ ንፀለምቲ ከም ዝጥቀሙልካ ማለት ነቶም ሰልፊሽ ዝኾኑ ፀለምቲ ዘይግድሶም ከም በዓልሱ
This is the real Susan Rice record that I think needs to be examined, and I think will be examined if indeed Obama decides to name her his Secretary of State.
Obama Secretary of State ገይርዋ ናታ ሬከርድ ስስክ ምርመር ኣለዎ ከም በሓድሽ ኢሎም ይጣቑሉ
As I said, I think this Benghazi story, which is really entirely about what she said on one series of talk shows on one day, and was not really about the policy she pursued herself, I think that's going to begin to fade away. And we're even seeing that now. John McCain, I think just today, issued a statement suggesting that, he no longer believes the administration changed these talking points that Susan Rice was given by the intelligence community. So I do think as time goes on, and if Obama goes ahead and appoints her, you're going to see her real record start to be debated.
Obama مسكين الشيشة في لولانيرو كانت politicians كمان نايزي أسرع بتعمل كبير كم زنابر حما أسرع كم زنابر تناتا decisions توصلوا زنابر تناتا different arrogance هرانو يزاربون يروم يعملوا كمان أوباما مسكين نسي كلنا نقر كل ودي إذا تنحى لك إذا اسمعكم زلوا خدكيري
Far more than the story that's been grabbing the headlines.
Well, I'm less confident of that. I'm pretty much just counting on this interview with you to get it out there, Michael. Tell me this. Someone who, because look, I could totally understand the point of view that, here you are, you're a junior staffer on the Clinton National Security Council. This horrible genocide goes on. You could have spoken up and you don't, and now you want to relive that and go save those poor people. Okay. That makes sense to me. I understand. I would accept that she's got honest motivations for all that kind of deal. But then, so how does that lead to support and even devotion for somebody like Meles Zenawi, the late dictator of Ethiopia?
هراي في رواندا استقبلت جيجا سرحنا قلتفنا زئاتنا قليلكا مساكين بزح سبت وديت بالتخون بدحريو خلي انتهي بس السبز فاشيست سبعيزي يقاربا إلو ممزحات سلو باب تاريكا كجمال هيجي interesting يو تخاتاتلو دكيري ناتي سكرين اب تحتك قوري ايمون عاخم كوكم ايزي okay
when that guy is a genocidal maniac.
Right. Well, it's
قتالي ملس زيناوي شي قتالي مينياك ناي جينوسايد مينياك كولوس نمتاي قريبوا نمتاي قريباتو يتنقر of course ميست ستي على بسو.
It's really difficult to say, and I don't want to sort of get into pop psychology, but Susan Rice is not that different from many specialists in Africa who have a kind of jaded sense that, we have to accept African big men who are slightly less awful, slightly less horrible than the previous generation, the Mobutus. And again...
لا تحسبي لو اوكي افريكا كلهم بيستسيوم ما ስለዚህ ዞም ሕጂ ዝመፁ ካብኦም ዝሓሹሲ ምስኣቶም ክንቃደር ኣለና ኣኸንደ ትእርሞም ምስ ምቕዳም እሱ ድማ ሓያል ሓደጋ ምፅኡ anyway
and who speak the right language. They talk about markets, they talk about opening up their economies, even
ብዛዕባ ኢኮኖሚ ዝዛረቡ ብዛዕባ ማርኬት ዝዛረቡ ብዛዕባ ህዝቢ ዝዛረቡ ምሳቶም ዋላ ዲክቴተር ዝተኾኑ ትጥምትወለኹም ኣቀራርብኦም ኣብዚ ድማ ቁሩብ ስትሬንጅ ብዙሕ ሰብ ድማ ይሓምዮም
while they pursue some of these same policies.
And,
the Ethiopian leader you just cited was one of them. I mean, on the day of his death in September, Susan Rice tweeted a sort of a mini eulogy that really caught a lot of human rights activists off guard because it was so glowing. She later went there to deliver a eulogy for him that was equally glowing. And
ስሞት እርክነቶም ኣውጥ راح يتوصل ብጣዕሚ ተጎዲእክ ሰብ ኣብቲ ሃገሮም ከይዳ ከማን በኺያ ማለተይ ስኒ እቲ ሓዘን ተኻፊላት እዚ ድማ ጥርጥር እቱ ነይሩ ኢሉ
it does raise questions about whether she somewhat naively has allowed herself to get in bed with these dictators thinking that they'll keep the peace while turning a blind eye and indeed forcing the UN Security Council to turn a blind eye because she has actively blocked a couple of reports that were going to make the association between the Rwandan government and these atrocity committing Congolese rebels.
ሓፂሩ ኣብ ኮንጎ ዝተገብረቶም ቀተልትን ናይ ሩዋንዳን ዝነበረ መዓት ዓይነት ማሕለኻ ፈጢራ ይብለኩም ኣሎ መዓት ስለዚ ብጣዕሚ ዘጠራጥር እዩ ናታ ኩነታት ሕጂ ድማ ምስ ኢትዮጵያ ከምዚ ዓይነት ሪሌሽንሽፕ እንታይ ኮን ይኸውን
and that's a serious issue, and I don't know why. I think she's not that different from a lot of other people who simply want to wash their hands of these African conflicts.
ሓፂሩ ኣፍሪካ ዝግበር ጦርነታት ካብቶም ሓደ ኢዶም ክሓፅሩ ዝደልዩ ርስሓት ሰሪሖም ከልግሱ ዝደልዩ ካብኦም ሓደ ክትከውን ትኽእል ከምኡ ገይሩ ገምጊመዋሎ እቲ ሰባይቱ ኣናሊስት anyway
particularly the Congolese war that no one is paying attention to, but I do think, as I say, this has to be in the forefront of any really tough look at Susan Rice's record.
ክምርመር ክኽእል ኣለዎ ታሪከን ኣብ ኮንጎ ዝገበረት መዓት ዓይነት ማሳክር ዝተገበረሉ ሚልዮን ዝሃለቑሉ ክምርመር ኣለዎ ኦባማ ይሸፊኑላ ነይሩ ሕጂ ድማ ኦፍኮርስ ባይደን ኣሎ in any case ግን ንርአዮ እዚ ነገር እዚ ንርአዮ
well it's funny. Most times, I mean, I don't know about, the whole history of 20th century American foreign policy or whatever, but usually they don't wrap it all up in such moralistic tones like this. I mean, usually the story is, hey, why does Dick Cheney back Zenawi? Well, Cheney backed Zenawi because Zenawi killed Somalis for Cheney.
Dick Cheney to vice president back up to go to Zenawi. ምክንያቱም ሶማልያታት ይቀትል ስለዝነበረ ይብለኩም አሉ ዲክ ቼኒ እኮ ናይ ተኣሽሙ እኮ ናይ ካርት ናይ ዲክ ቼኒ ናይ መን ነይሩ ወደይ ናይ ኣቲክ ናይ ጆርጅ ቡሽ ነይሩ መስለኒ ናይ ጆርጅ ቡሽ ነይሩ okay let's go.
And nobody pretends that it's because Dick Cheney has such a bleeding heart for the poor whoever that he wants Zenawi to go and save. It is what it is. Everybody knows that. He's a loyal puppet of the Americans and accomplish our agenda. But then so the part to me that really gets me, I don't know if my funny bone, my irony bone or something, is Susan Rice is one of these ladies who really dresses up her entire foreign policy as humanitarian intervention and caring about the weakest, poorest people the most first is the whole point, and then turns around and has a Dick Cheney foreign policy, just calls it whatever she wants, calls it a baby blue flag instead of red, white, and blue.
No, I think there's a lot to that, frankly. It's not that different. I mean, she's obviously not going off starting wars the way Cheney did, but in terms of this rather stark and this passionate sort of realpolitik, let's just deal with it whatever dictators we can. I think there's a similarity there.
Well, and then she did help start the war in Libya, right?
Yeah, well, right. I mean, that was her great moment of humanitarian intervention, but it
of course after Libya ድማ ኣዝያ ኢንቮልቭ ጌራ definitely ኣብዚ ዝጣራት ቶም ጨካናት በዓል ቼኒ ገለ መለታት ካብኦም ትፍለጥ ሰበይቲ ኮይና ኮነት ተረኺባ ዘላ ዛ ሰበይቲ እዚኣ ባይና እምበር ክንከይዲና ክንቅፅልና ንእሽተይ ኢንትረስቲንግ ዝኾነ ነገራት ከሪእኩም የደቀየበ
it does contrast with what she's done in Africa.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone at her confirmation hearing will ask about her accusation that Gaddafi was passing out Viagra and all his soldiers were committing mass rapes and they were going to rape.
ريهم لك كم تنعنا زلونا كل Viagra يحلف له massive rape كجبر من يسي Gaddafi Viagra جيروسي كتاساس sexually aroused كقولوا سخونة سبيتي نختورر ريب نختكبر كم زيرو ما تفيهم of course أتفيهم هذا كم زي لا زوريت سبيتي
everybody in Benghazi and all these lies that she told that were obvious lies.
بنغازي زبالة في مجمع استسألوا I think بنغازي prisoner مثلاً ساتهم ريفولت مش قوار مستثرب بشيء يقولوا نقدر كوين ساكن كم يجرون كم تتعاطلوا نود كيري ود ليبيا لكم يساعدك حبوا سيلو مس أوباما.
I don't think this is likely to come up.
I remember listening to a right-wing talk radio show host saying, you know, like a Limbaugh clone type of guy saying, well, even Susan Rice, who's the exact opposite of me, says that this is true. So we know that it's true.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just a fun little anecdote about how we got into that war based on really silly lies, right?
Yeah.
ሓሳዊት ብሓሶት ጥራሕ ጥብሳ ቢላቶ ንኣሜሪካዊ ኣብ ዝኾነ ጦርነታት ሳኢዳ ዘተወትሉ ኣብ ዝኾነ ነገር
mass Viagra armies of rapists. I mean, come on.
ብቫግራ ኣርሚ እንዳሃበስ ሬፕ የግብራሉ ኢልካ ብዝ
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen.
برمبار the care of this is a rice witness Meles is good personalities كم يقرأ أنا Meles كم تقول ما بدي سمعني بتعمل interesting جدي سمعني أوكي أنا كورد كفتني كابزي أنا نابز كمتسي and then سمعوا كترجم لكم
human rights, regional security, or our respective foreign policies.
نايت ستة نايت region نايت كبابي نايت foreign policy وناوت أي أتعمل
Was always struck by two things.
بتعمل مسد أنني بخلتنا قلت بلا.
Meles was consistently reasoned in his judgments.
ملس أفتز قورز نبرة كل زرباتات كله consistently reasoned قبل كله rational سخونة مخني سخونة رايدو مرتعطات ندمت أي زارب
And thoughtful in his decisions.
بزح حسيبه يديسايدز قال حساب.
And he was driven not by ideology, but by his vision.
Ideology سوزختلو أي نبرة تبلالا. Of course. نا ألبانيا كومونيزم بدكفت نبرة سبي دحرت قالوا يتنا أمريكا زعتو أمو داتا أيديولوجي نبروني لاتو أي نبروني رأي أي نبرون
Of a better future.
الساقن بخون انترنتيوا أيديولوجي أي نبرون بزعبا زمت بروح متعت بلالا أوكي
By ideology, but by his vision.
أيديولوجي نبرون جن علامة نروت بلالا أيديولوجي ندحرزين نبرون أمو خمي غير كاي علامة نبعلو أيديولوجي كبرا خلد.
Of a better future.
طبق متعي.
For the land he loved.
بروح متعي. نتاز فتوى مريت إثيوبيا تبار.
I will deeply miss the challenge and the insights I gained from our discussions. He was instrumental in building the African Union.
Africa Union instrumental rebuild كقولوا. تبرا of course هذا contribution صار. At least building أسيهو.
He made IGAD deliver.
IGAD سني وتيت كم توت جراتو جروات. ملز زناوي لو كمالون إساياس أوتيو فحفح زبولو حجي إيقاد كسر حجي إيقاد كم زسرح سرح كم زبركت كيرو ملز
He confronted terrorism directly.
التيروريزم دما قط نقط نقبر شبرينينت قط نقط تقافي توتو
And countered violent extremists bent on undermining the state and the region he did so much to build.
أن الإكستريمستس دما ببطات يوم تايشم تسببت السبات هذا حساب راح تمسو عطاتهم تقاوي بوا من درمعوا من يتبقى.
He worked vigorously to end bitter conflicts from
بتاع مسرحيو بأستات كتكبل تكبل
Burundi to Liberia.
كبال بروندي كساب ليبيريا.
He was crucial in the negotiation and implementation of the comprehensive peace agreement that ended Sudan's tragic civil war.
ما بسودان زنبرة civil war تطون خبل لما أزيد واسيت برانا.
Prime Minister Meles was midwife to the birth of the world's newest state, the Republic of South Sudan. And he sought to nurse this fragile progeny to strength.
أو ساوث السودان دم عبترات أو تيتبرا لا تغللوا نخلاتنا نفحفح يزبل الناس اليوم طول. والله بسمانا زنا الشباب إن كفت يغيق زبروا وشتي إن السيء توم أرشين يزبالوا زناوي يعني زخلوا أبي إثيوبيا تسري زلوا كذا أبلني وحقي خبريت ولا أبي الله تحكي السا ناتمن قستي فرموا زرعوا وتنسى قبروا وتنا بوردر ناتنا مالتي.
I can also testify personally.
أجيب علي كمان personally فلتيت ولا لا دقيري personally بpolitical كيف جاخونس بعركنتات وزلا.
How much Ethiopia, under Prime Minister Meles' leadership, has given to the United Nations.
The United Nations كسب كندي. Ethiopia comes قبرت الله. Of course حسكب comes نبرك أتزارب. United Nations حبرات منقستات نعوم سيت تسوي إلا ما يتبلا لا. بعد كيري إذا حدي وخوينو قرب حنتي سكشن دما كنا كنفالا لنا لو ما أنت أبكتك جوري كيف بزحكم كيف بزحكم.
Democratic, well, first of all,
أبزي press conference عندها بتكلم. Okay, press conference هتبزلا أما gazeteinyatat. Okay, let's go.
Yes, I think we would say that the president of Kenya was democratically elected. That was a competitive process. I think the prime minister of
after marriage على إثيوبيا تزارب زلا. Of course, ناي كينيا president بحق تمريسيو بديمقراطية.
Ethiopia was just elected in with 100% of the vote.
بميتي فوت تمريسيو لنا إثيوبيا تلوكم على. Meles Zenawi.
Which I think suggests, as we have stated in our public statement, some concern for the integrity of the electoral process.
Of course, هذا concern comes لنا قليت لنا. The election كم comes لنا.
At least, if not in the outcomes, then in some of the mechanisms that supported the process. The freedom for the opposition to campaign.
But does he think that was a democratic election?
I said 100%.
Democratic donor ميت بميت استمرت سيرو مسفات تاجن كم إلاك تحلف دلاني رادكير ميت بميتي يوم يعني شو تمريت نازل إذا جن حيزوا democratic donor هو إلى تو جن حكي كحلف يعني.
Could you say what law make?
تايم سيلو ما بزتري وزلهم كم جاء خونا فلوتي. ميت بميتي دوت مريض مسبلا كم زمرت سبسلة زي اللي تفلتها. سيغا جن ستيل جن. مش إثيوبيا زمدنا أن قال من أن حماق إلى ونكم أنت قبلت تخيف أحلفاته. هم قال جرا سجرا.
I can't give resolutions, including 19.
بعد كده نقصر لنا. Let's continue on this one. Continuous gear إسرع لكم وسمعوا زد ما بحاله.
7 passed 2 years ago.
أبز مسوية لك كلا زريكم ساعة سئتي. بقى قايلة. مسأتهم آتياتوس زمدنا أم بتعم حريف كوينوس أو كم زعينة قايلة ناتاتهم مسارح كوينة كم زنا برد زريكم زد كيري. تريوالو.
This resolution underscores the international community's condemnation of Eritrea's destabilizing behavior in the Horn and its support for terrorism.
The resolution نحن فوز لنا condemns Eritrea تخاخ بيراتنا لا رايدني terrorism تكبر الله إريتريا تعقب الله تبلوكم.
This resolution underscores
እቲ ናታሳቶም ዘሕለፎ resolution at that time ናይ መዓስ ምዃኑ ደወር ይባል
the international community's condemnation of Eritrea's destabilizing behavior in the Horn.
ንዓለም መራሕቲ ኩሎም ኮንደምድ ገይሮም እዮም ናይ ኤርትራ ናይቲ ዞባ ዲስታብላይዝ ትገብራላ በቃ ቅሳነት ከይነብር እዚ ድማ እዚ resolution ከምኡ ትገብራላ እና ጸሓፍናዮስ ኣብ ደገፍ ረኺቡ
and its support for terrorism.
terrorism ድማ support ትገብር ኤርትራ ኢሎም ድማ ኣብቲ resolution ጽሒፎም በዚኣ ዛሰበይቲ ፓወር ከላ
It strengthens the provisions of 1907 and imposes additional obligations on Eritrea, limits its ability to continue to use the mining sector and the diaspora tax to fund its illicit activities.
ኣብ diaspora ድማ እንዳኣከበት ሰልዲ ትእክብ ማይኒንግ ድማ ትገብራላ ኣብዚ ድማ ስጉም ትኩሰድ ኦኬ መጨረሻ እዚ ትሳዕስዒ ደገረ ካሊ ነገር የለ ኣካይዳ ብጣዕሚ ረሳሕ ብጣዕሚ በዓለገ እዩ ነይሩ ረሳሕ እዩ ነይሩ ኣቲክ ዝኣሰና ዲመስለኒ ምሶም ነይሩ ሜቢ ዲወራ ካሊ ንዑ መስል
The unity of the international community in response to the pleas that we heard from the leadership of the IGAD states this morning, who were unanimous in underscoring their concern about the threat posed by Eritrea and their call upon the council for stronger sanctions.
ኣገርመኩም እንዶ ኣብ ኢጋድ ድማ ኦልሬዲ ኤርትራ ወፂኣሲ መለስ ዜናዊ ዝቋፃፀሩ ዘሎሽ እሳቶም ድማ ፀቓቒጦም ፀቓቒጦም ሞር ሳንክሽን ክግበር ኣብ ኤርትራ ቴሮሪዝም ቀፂሉ ኣሎ እቲ ሪጅን ጠቕላላ ተረቢሹ ኣሎ ብኤርትራ ስቴቢሊቲኦም ሃለዋቶም ተረቢሹ ኣሎ ኢልካ ድማ ከምኡ ግበር ነይሩ ከምኡ ግበር ነይሩ ታሪክና ንምዝግብ ዘለና ኣብዚ ብእንግሊዝኛ ጌርና ክንሰርሖ ኢና ኣብቲ እንግሊዝ ቻነል ከቕርቦ እየ ብደንቢ ራይዶ ፕሊዝ ሰፖርት ግበሩና ኣብዚ ትሕመቑ ኣይትሕመቑ እዚታት ህዝቢ ዓለም ክፈልጦ ክእል ኣለዎ ኤርትራ ክትሓዊት ኮይና እምበር ደቀረ ንግዚኡ ኣብዚ ክገድፈኩም ሎ በዓልቲ ኣብዚ ክገድፈኩም ምክንያቱም ፅቡቅ ኣይመስለንን ክንቅፅል ከይበዝሓኩም እምበር ወላ ሓንቲ ካልኣይ ክገብረልኩም እየ ካልኣይ ትገበርክልኩም ይሓይሽ ራይዶኒ እዚ ንግደፎ ኣብዚ ኮይኑ ግን እንታይና ክንገብር ደሊ ዘለና ሕጂ እምበኣረይ we're getting the record straight. Okay, after the American foreign policies that's all to that. As a whole with them, can it about them? But Susan Rice, the politics that's out. Me as an American, how was Susan Rice to my country safety, to my country's security? Was she a good politician or not? Or destructive politician, opportunistic politician? تكمل لنا رات السلطان مسعود ملز زيناوي كم تعينت قرر تقرروا صار كداي كم زنبره كداي بيرسونال لا وشو تزاربوا اكاديمي دي ميراخنا لازم بقى ناو انجليشون بعد كومنت كقول لهم تحابرونا تحاغاغزونا نجزيو جن بزا موسيقى زي عندنا غير فليكم لكيري بناي بامالي حاسبني رئيس باقي في لكم كل نقر تنقرصونا بناتاتكم حاجز كل نقر ዓለም ክፈልጦ ዝግብኦ ብዛዕባ ኤርትራ ብዘይቋረፅ ድኻም ኣዝዩ ኣድካሚ ምዃኑ እንዳፈለጥና ክንቅፅሎ ኢና ኣሴምታ ሓገዝ የድልየና ኣሎ ናይ ስእሊ ገለ ኮነ ዝብለኩም ዘሎ ናይ ሪሶርስስ እንግሊሽ ክብሉ ክፅሕፉ ዝኽእሉ ከንቡ ዝኽእሉ ኣብዚ እንዳመፁ ክሰርሑ ዝኽእሉ ሓሳብ ما وصلوني هم أيتحمقوا تحدي الشانل mankind justice يا تبل أبزون كجرفوركم أتهم هذا 4 فيديوهات الله كنقصلينا قصالك قبري زحجز قبر كود ما بالانجليزيه كقربه كستيشن العالم بس افريكانس بس يوروبيانس بس امريكانس ساوث امريكانس وريب زراخ بنا ميديم كفترينا املاخ تيلونا اسكم تحجزكم زي كبرنا كيري لنا مو رايدو تخيف ولد كيري